Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios. This is episode 89. And
Trace Trylko. Hello, everyone. 89.
89.
Oh,
We're getting there.
Almost up to your zeros and fives.
Getting to 90. I'm looking forward to 100. And that will be... We've already done 100 episodes of different shows and all the different parts and pieces and stuff. But I'm looking forward to the actual Knightline podcast episode 100. That's the one I'm looking forward to. All right, guys. Well, kind of a difficult evening out there last night. I think everybody had fun tailgating and stuff, but then pretty much after the interception for the touchdown, it pretty much stopped being fun for me at that point.
It stopped being fun for a lot of the announced 35,000 plus in the finale of the regular season at home. 35-20 Tulsa. Tulsa's a good team. They are a good team.
They are.
Let's give them their due.
They are.
I believe you were surprised when we talked about the line opening up at 3.5
a week
ago.
And I called, unfortunately, I've said that these two games were going to be really hard to win. I thought at the beginning of the game, I really did. I felt good about it. I felt that there was a bit of an energy yesterday. And I felt that, we may have a better chance than I had suspected before, but then quickly that went away.
Well, it started off well, but nonetheless, UCF falls to 6-5 overall. Remember, already reached bowl eligibility, 4-3 in the American. Close out the home slate, 3-3, and we're going to look back on these three losses to Maryland in that double overtime, to Temple. They were right at the end.
All difficult losses, like they were all kind of emotional, difficult losses.
And this is a one with senior day, and boy, that ceremony started early. They recognized more than 24 people who have suited up at home for their final time, and the names are just a who's who, right?
Absolutely.
Shaquille Griffin is on that list. Taylor Oldham is on that list. DJ Killings, and you can't even name all of them, and they've all contributed to the program in some meaningful way.
Yeah,
and we thank them for contributing as members of the UCF family.
Absolutely. For me, this one's kind of emotional because those were the last of the Fiesta Bowl season guys. Those were the young guys then, and now they're the guys that are going out, and a couple of them I know will go to the NFL. I think, anyway. I hope. It's the one thing that I don't love about college football.
You say goodbye to people.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather have those people, be able to re-up their contract or whatever.
Can we come to a 2-year deal?
Yeah, because it's like, 4 years.
Yeah.
They come and go very quickly, and you get to know these people. You get to, root for them. You know who your favorite players are. And
in your case, you're tailgating with families.
Yeah.
You sit with families. You go to road games and you see the families.
Right.
It is a different experience than rooting for a professional team, for sure.
It is. It's a little emotional.
Yeah, and it's been an interesting week for us as followers of Knightline know. We midweek had the interview with Alan Gooch, former player, former coach.
I have to say, and I don't give Trace nearly the credit that I should, Trace. I don't give you the credit that I should, and you're shaking your head, yes. But you had a great week, and you did some incredible things this week, getting some of these interviews, and thumbs up to you, and thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you for that. If folks have not heard, the Q&A with Alan Gooch is really good insight into what increasingly now with the Tulsa loss looks like it might be UCF's bowl trip, December 17th, Cure Bowl. I talked to some folks at the game who said that is, in fact, what they're hearing on the administration side and athletics side. So we'll see if that plays out again. A victory over South Florida during rivalry week could change that outcome. Also, I got to tell you, I texted it to you, but the whole interviewing George O'Leary on Friday night went to volleyball. I go with the lanes. I'm courtside. I love going to the volleyball. Every single play, it's exciting. Get there, game delayed. The officials weren't there. No referees. They didn't show up. So I'm like, all right, I remember they were doing this ceremony at the stadium. I want to get a picture of the statue, at night. And that's why I headed over there. Had 30-plus minutes while they were waiting for folks. And I'm walking over there, and I see former offensive coordinator Charlie Taff and leaving Bright House. And then I see Coach O'Leary's wife and son Marty O'Leary walk out, and I see Channel 6 show up, and I thought, I think Coach is still here. So fumbled for my phone, which I was going to take a photo, figured out that whole voice recording thing, and then out came Coach and agreed to talk, and 2.5 minutes later, he touched on some very interesting things. If you haven't heard the interview, I thought the fact that this was his first meeting with UCF head coach Scott Frost in person was interesting. And he also talked about his health. There are reports coming during the week that he's battling melanoma cancer. And all of this coming in a weekend in which he was honored and recognized at halftime, and that statue was unveiled. And, goodbye to the seniors and a lot of things. And by the way, a goodbye to Bright House Network Stadium. It will be renamed mid-November.
I've heard that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be Spectrum. It could be something else.
Yeah, just not going to be the Bright House, it looks like.
Yeah.
But it was a good week for us.
Don't hold me to that.
And talking to various people connected with UCF through the years. And in the case of Alan Gooch and George O'Leary, two of our head coaches.
Yeah, that was kind of, it was a weird week. It definitely was. We weren't expecting all of that. We were obviously trying to get Coach Gooch, but we did not expect to walk upon George O'Leary there. We will play that interview later on in here in this episode.
And there's a lot going on. The basketball team, we'd be remiss if we don't mention, while we go to record on Sunday evening, they've got a big game against Villanova that's going to be on national
Where is this basketball team coming from, too? That's the other thing. They're 3-0. I mean, Johnny Dawkins is going to be a god at some point at UCF. For number one, they're playing number 3 Villanova, last year's national champions. Yeah. I don't know how much you can expect from that, but what if? Just what if? What if?
We can play.
What if something crazy happens? What if they win this game? I mean, that would be the biggest thing, I think, ever to happen in basketball at UCF, period. I personally, I'm shocked by 3-0. I'm shocked by the decisive victories that have, been had.
Mississippi State, an SEC school, so no slouch.
And they're not the greatest SEC school, but still they're an SEC school. They have a lot better recruiting than we have. They have tons more depth than we have. That's a problem for us. It may show up a little bit more, with Villanova, but against Nichols the other night, that team, was very strong defensively, and we were able to overcome.
It's
that,
a tremendous start.
It is
for the Johnny Dawkins era.
Way to go, Johnny Dawkins,
and way to go, Taco Fall, for really stepping up his game, and the return of B.J. Taylor. And isn't it exciting to talk about? Well, let's be glass. You said it last week. You're the glass half full guy, right? Well, I mean, this is a bowl year for the football team. Basketball's off to a good start. There was a coaching change midweek, and that men's soccer's longtime coach.
And we will see.
There's change all around
to the glass half empty. We will see how long this continues with the basketball team, because it may go away very quickly. But I want to give Johnny Dawkins double thumbs up for number one, knowing how to use Taco Fall. Because Donnie Jones got him here, but he didn't know how to use him.
He was young, though.
He's
seen some
I don't think he knew how
year.
to use him, because Johnny Dawkins is using him the correct way, and you can see it.
And says he wants to use him even more.
Well,
more than what he's using him now.
He should take advantage of the largest player in all of college basketball. I mean, it's pretty much a no-brainer. So, I mean, I'm happy. It's a good thing.
So it's been an interesting week all
Not
around.
So happy about the things on the football side of it, though.
No.
I feel like we regressed quite a bit, actually. I couldn't believe, was going on.
Started out so strong defensively with the pick six, but they fought back. They did fight back to a halftime tie. Yeah. Matt Wright with a long field goals, 47-48. But then the third quarter was just a mess.
Very, very disappointing.
And there was a lack of energy. That just the air went out of the stadium.
And people started leaving. I mean, lots and lots of people left.
What was funny to me with this statue unveiling and the ceremony with Coach O'Leary, and I stood right up when halftime started.
I did too.
And I was listening for boos, and I didn't hear any
I didn't
anywhere
hear
I
any
was. What was funny to me is that I heard more grumbling by game's end about Coach Frost than any talk about Coach O'Leary.
People are starting to, maybe change their feelings about Coach Frost a little bit, and I don't think that that's totally fair. We talk a little bit later with Kyle Israel about this.
Great dialogue with Kyle this week.
It's a little bit less. It's a little bit less mechanics, a little bit more everything else.
He talks about his relationship with Coach O'Leary. He talks about what rivalry week with the Cows means. And that is, by the way, what's happening this week. They come out, it's established just as we go to record, a 10.5-point favorite. You may see that grow a little bit. South Florida's a pretty talented team.
And but
it's a rivalry.
I got to say, as much as I have not been the biggest George O'Leary supporter, it was great to see him. I think the statue, maybe not at the right time, but I think it should have been done, and I think it's nice, and it was nice to see George O'Leary out there the other day. I even ran down when he was standing on the sideline in front of me and took a picture.
A lot of people were getting their photos with that statue, too.
You actually took a photo of Tina and I with the statue. It's the man deserves to. He did a lot. He deserves to get the recognition that he's getting. Period.
The people.
No one should have booed. I didn't. Like I said, I didn't hear anybody. Thank God, because I would have never even considered booing. Just not something I would do. Even though I have said many times that I wasn't really a fan, but I completely 100% acknowledge what he has done for UCF football, and a lot of us wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for him.
And something about UCF as an alum, and for folks that have followed the program for a long time, we don't have a lot of folks that we can hang on to. Kirk Spiro was basketball coach for 17 years, and that tenure ended and doesn't really have an association with the program. And he was a big face for that program and its growth and development over many years. Jay Bergman, key coach for 25-plus years. I know it ended under poor terms, but no association with the program for the longest time. No association with Gene McDowell until recently when they recognized him.
Yeah.
And to look and say, well, we shouldn't do anything. I'm not big on the timing either, but that we shouldn't do anything. Well, who are we going to hold on to if we don't ever recognize anybody from our relatively short past?
Yeah, and I think that they could have made that whole thing a little bit more grand than they did. But we all know George O'Leary, and he's a simple, kind of, I'm sure that they probably wanted to make it a little bit more grand, but I bet that he didn't want it to be more grand than it was. It's done. I'm glad they did it. They need to maybe do it again at some point, and maybe he can come out every once in a while.
And when they recognized all of the things, between the Fiesta Bowl and the conference championships and Coach of the Year recognition, and all of that, he accomplished a great deal.
Absolutely.
And has now been recognized. Will continue to be remembered for all that he's contributed to the program, because you see the fruits of that labor all the time now.
I'm turning into a softie here. I'm talking, positive about things that I usually don't talk positive about.
It's a strange one for us this week, because I just think back to how difficult this was to come out week after week last year during the 0-12, and we've had some success this year and have been able to talk about victories. I don't like talking about losses.
No, this one was. I felt walking out of the stadium, I felt memories. A little bit of PTSD of last year. That's the way I felt. I felt exactly the same way. I felt that all day today. It's been a bad day. Let's hear what Scott Frost has to say about last night's game.
That was a tough game. Still really proud of my guys, this team, and the way they battle, and they didn't quit tonight. Tulsa's one of the better teams in our league, and we're consistently competing really well with the best teams in this league. Won't be long before there's a day around here where we'll get over the hump and win those games. We just made a few too many mistakes tonight and sputtered too much on offense, but still really proud of our guys and the way they gave effort. We loved our offensive game plan coming into this game. We just didn't execute it real well. That's on us coaches to make sure that we execute better. Our defense was playing great in the first half, and offensively, we kept sputtering and putting the defense right back out there. We're not a deep enough team to have to to go out there that often, that many times on defense. Had some big plays in the first half offensively and had penalties on them, missed some throws that would have extended drives. Those are little things you can't do against a good team in this league. And you can't fumble a punt, you can't get penalties on big plays, you can't miss easy throws, not if you're going to beat the better teams in this league. Yeah, there was discussion if we should go with Justin, but I'm not going to quit on our guys. I think McKenzie's earned the right to be out there. I believe in it, and I'll never abandon our guys. And I think Justin deserves to play too, but McKenzie's our guy, and we're going to stick with him.
I respect Scott Frost for sticking with Milton, even though, and we talk about this later with Kyle, but I want to say this right after that, this clip. I just feel that it would be a disservice to McKenzie to think that looking over his shoulder and think he was going to get pulled every time that, he made a mistake or something. And I understand it's in general, the opinion is winning games. But there's more to the picture than just winning games when it comes to grooming someone to take over your program and to run your program for you.
Frost is playing a long game. He's playing with house money now. They go from 0 to 6 and bowl eligible on a lot of moving parts, a freshman quarterback, and he doesn't have a quarterback on that roster that is his future. Now, maybe McKenzie doesn't prove to be the future quarterback. Maybe there's somebody better that comes along. But on this roster today, he's, Frost's opinion, the best option.
Right. There are other quarterbacks that are coming next year. There are more quarterbacks. In every class, probably, there's going to be another quarterback.
He's not going to stop recruiting.
No. And there's guys out there, of course, that are very like McKenzie, may have one or two things that are a little bit better, but McKenzie's going to have one more year of going through tough games, through all the different things that you can go through as a quarterback, from all of it, from good plays to bad plays to feeling like you're out there not, McKenzie knows how the game's going. He's obviously,
You'll see him claim responsibility. You watch him, that's on me.
Absolutely.
He knows what he's doing.
He's learning every time he's out there.
Even when
There's
it's a mistake.
no reason, and I said it on Twitter myself. I said it. Maybe it's time to look at somebody else as a quarterback in this particular moment. But he still needs to get that experience. And after I said that, I started thinking about that. Sometimes my thumbs on Twitter go before my brain does. And sometimes my mouth goes before my brain does. And after I said that, I thought about that, and I'm like, no, this is probably best. Let him take his knocks. Let him, figure it out. You don't get better by standing on the side watching somebody else. Maybe getting a glimpse of it, and we've talked about that.
That's my quibble, and I've talked about that over the last several weeks. I just wish every once in a while that he'd come out and get a breather and get to talk to coaches and let Holman go in, because even if it's handing the ball off 2 plays, Justin can do that. And Justin's a deep threat, where for the last several weeks we haven't had that deep threat.
I understand that, offense. But I also really respect Coach Frost for sticking with his guns. And, this is the way that it's going to be. This is what we're doing. And, and I know that he's getting a lot of criticism for this stuff. He's more criticism than I've ever heard, him get. And it's interesting. So we shall see.
Scott Frost is also a semifinalist for National Coach of the Year. Now,
he should be.
He's not going to win that, but he's a semifinalist for that position, going from 0 to 6.
Absolutely.
So I say, give him the benefit of the doubt. He's doing this with not all of his own guys.
And we're not, people are going to call us huggers and all this other stuff. No, we're looking at the freaking big picture, It's not that we're trying to hug. We're not doing that. We're telling it like it is, and we're seeing what's going on, and I'm at least trying to look at the big picture and not just the score of the game. So,
our buddy John Swift, who joined us from time to time with Crunching the Numbers, he's looking at a certain level of big picture over the last several weeks, and threw us an email this Sunday with some stats. Over the last 4 games, if you counted Sevion Lowry's touchdown, the defense would have outscored the offense. However, that one, you remember, was waved off on that ridiculous penalty. And the offense scored, leaving 4 touchdowns from the offense over the last 4 games and 4 touchdowns by the defense special teams over the last 4 games. And that tells you, all right, That tells you where the offense has been struggling. But what are you going to do now? You're to the final regular season game with a bowl trip in there. What are you going to do? You got to continue to go with these players and every rep that they get. And you talked about learning from mistakes too.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not just all the greatest things in the world that you're going to learn from.
The mistakes are what a lot of people learn from the most.
Milton, 75 of 138 with 623 passing yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions over these last 4 games, averaging 156 yards passing a game. And the running game's not been there as well. So we see it. They're 6 and 5, and that is, at the end of the day, maybe that's a fair record, right? Yeah. We talked about, we could have been, we should have been. Maybe that's just what we are.
This is better than we picked it to be in the beginning of the year, and I still haven't gone. I need to go back. I still haven't gone back, but I will do that at some point. Maybe on our end of the season spectacular. I don't know what else to call it.
Is it going to be music? What is it going to be? I like that.
The end of the season spectacular, which will probably be on YouTube or something like that. I want to do another one of those things like we did last year, possibly with better lighting. And better audio.
Better lighting.
Yeah. So,
and you know what I forget is every week we pick up new people that are listening. We've been having a bunch of people jump on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, and we get messages. You're so interactive with Twitter, and it's interesting to have this dialogue back and forth with so many people. And so there are a lot of people listening to us for the first time, and they're feeling the same thing. The offense has been struggling. We know it, but this isn't a quick fix.
While you're talking about that, I put a survey up online on our website, UCFKnightlinePodcast.com. You can find it on our Twitter page. You can find it on our Facebook page. Please fill that out if you have the opportunity. I know it's a little bit long. People have complained. But please, if you have a chance, fill that out for us.
Well, there's been a lot of positives. And
good positives, good negatives.
The constructives have been really good. Here's a positive. Content is specific to UCF. You include former player interviews, opposing team reporter interviews, recruit interviews. I like that. The intern has improved your post-game stat analysis.
Yeah, that's great.
Jason,
it's awesome.
And here's one that says, improve upon. I missed the podcast during the dead season of summer when not much UCF sports is occurring, but I just understand since there's not as much to cover, and we're already talking about things that we're expanding the franchise in 2017.
We're
going to
figure stuff out. We're going to do some stuff a little bit differently, and there's all kinds of plans. And if we didn't have feedback from like a survey and stuff like that, we wouldn't get a lot of this feedback. I mean, we get some on message boards and stuff like that, obviously, and that's valuable, but it puts it in just a little bit of a format on the survey. So that's why we ask you to do that. And we greatly appreciate every single one of you that has listened and continues listening. And I need to ask you guys to please share that stuff on Facebook, on Twitter, share what we're doing. We just want to get to more people. It's really hard to break out of like the core group of people that we've I think gotten to at this point. We really want to go beyond that though and get some new people listening, and we're working really hard to try to do that.
And stuff like the interview with Alan Gooch, the former UCF player, coach, now executive director of the Cure Bowl, talking with us during the week. The latest projections coming out of this loss still has CBS Sports saying UCF, but now the opponent Appalachian State in the Cure Bowl. And it was Alan Gooch, when you listen to the interview, who said, quote, a 6-win UCF would probably be in the Cure Bowl most likely. And again, I spoke with folks on Saturday who said, book it, that's most likely the bowl destination, and we'll learn that on the 4th of December.
I just think that bowl would be perfect for us. I think that
Camping World Stadium in Orlando.
Camping World Stadium, the Citrus Bowl, whatever you want to call it, in Orlando, a home game basically. A lot of memories brought back for former players that played in that stadium, alumni that grew up going and watching the games at that stadium. We could do the big tailgate thing. It's close. I think that's just a perfect bowl game.
And again, that we're even talking about a bowl game coming off of an 0-12 season, and UCF of course has that distinction of going from 0 to bowl game, and has done it twice. And did it under Coach George O'Leary and now Coach Scott Frost.
And this bowl game, the Cure Bowl game, supports a great cause. Coach Gooch told us, I'm not sure, I can't remember the number, but like the majority
91 cents.
Of every dollar, right? That's a lot that goes to cancer research, and it goes to the research of somebody that is at UCF's medical school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer that it's made for UCF to be in, so this is our opportunity to be in it, and I hope that it gets done, and it would be perfect.
Soon enough, we'll know.
Yeah,
but again, maybe that changes with a victory during rivalry week.
Can't wait because I need to ask for some days off of work. Moving, I want to go back real quick, and then we'll get on to Kyle and the rest of our stuff. But I had a clip here that we kind of neglected. I have a clip from Shaquille Griffin about his last game at Bright House Network Stadium.
Yeah, it's hard, especially, the way it came out. I remember talking to Brandon Struble, a former player. He said any day, win or lose, you just got to enjoy the moment. It's your last time. So, he tried to keep me up during the whole game. Just enjoy the moment. Just have fun while you can. This your last one. But, like I said, you don't want to go out, the way we did. But, I feel like everything happens for a reason. I know I feel for Coach Frost to take the blame for everything. But, at the same time, I feel like this is my fault, too. I feel like I could have did so much more, and I feel like this team, the whole UCF Nation, so much more for me as a senior, and I promise I'll step my game up the next game and follow.
Well, that next game will be the final game of the regular season on the road at Tampa. That game time announced now, noon. I plan to be at Raymond James in Tampa, and you're going to be holding down the fort at the 1148 studios for another edition of Knightline Postgame Live, where you're going to be taking folks' calls.
Yes, and that will be directly after that game is finished.
Directly. And that trophy they unveiled.
And that's on Rabble.tv.
And what's the phone number? The 407-401-9184.
Is the call-in number, yes. And yes.
So
I'm looking forward. That's the last chance we're going to have to do that this year, possibly.
Unless you do it during the bowl.
We're looking into doing it after the bowl game, so we will see.
They've unveiled that War on I-4 trophy.
Yeah, it's nice.
Did you see it?
I like it.
Yeah, it's not UCFKnights.com. You can take a look at it.
It's heavy, I guess. So they were saying that the UCF put out a press release earlier today about that and sent pictures and all that, and it's like 100 and something pounds. It's heavy. It's a big trophy, and the inside, the top part comes off, and you got to look at pictures of it.
I wonder how much that statue of George O'Leary weighs.
I don't know. It's kind of small. Anyway, it seems like it's small. I don't think it's life size. Anyway, speaking of George O'Leary, let's listen to that interview real quick. It's kind of short, so we will do that now.
I think the guy took a poor specimen, made a good job as possible out of it and stuff, and it was a nice, thoughtful gesture by UCF, and I greatly appreciate that.
What do you think it says about your tenure and your career here at UCF?
Well, I think it's all listed there, and when I took this job, I had three things in mind that I wanted to get done. One is establish a football program, not just a team, but a program based on support elements, academics, the weight room, the equipment room, the video department, and get that going. And we got that accomplished academically to make sure the kids would graduate with a meaningful degree. And then the last part, the social end of it, making sure they were doing things right and staying out of trouble. So, mission accomplished as far as those three things are concerned. And nothing but great admiration for UCF and the fan base. And as I said earlier, I said after every game, I've always felt two emotions. One of great joy that we won the game, and one of great sadness that we didn't win. And right now I feel a little bit of both. Great joy that they were thoughtful enough to do something like this, and sadness that probably would have liked to accomplish more. Much rather be remembered than liked, as I said, in the coaching profession. That's more important to me. And I think in 12 years we had a lot of good times you'd like to have back. But again, I'm very grateful to UCF and the thoughtfulness in remembering me like this.
What do you think of the turnaround so far this season?
I think Scott, Coach Frost has done a great job. I congratulated him tonight when I met with him, as far as the team's concerned. And I think I told him that. I said I'm very happy for you and your success.
First time you've spoken with him in person?
No, in person. You're right. I talked to him on the phone when he got in town, but the first time in person I spoke to him. And I'm very happy for them, and I'm a UCF fan. I'm always going to root for UCF, and I think he's done a masterful job with the team back this year.
A lot of folks care about you and have heard some news about your health. What can you tell us? How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm doing well and stuff. And, the good Lord, he doesn't close one door unless he opens another. And I'm very happy about what's taking place. And life moves on. And I'm waiting for tomorrow night's game. I'm anxious to see it. And then 1 week at a time and just go from there.
Congratulations.
Coast to coast.
And even north of the border in Canada.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Phegley.
I'm Trylko. Tell your friends about Knightline Post-Game Live. It's the only place to talk about UCF's latest road game as soon as the game ends.
We're taking your calls live, so save our number, 407-401-9184. That's 407-401-9184.
Join the conversation with Knights fans across the country. Download the Rabble.tv app today and listen in. Remember, when the clock expires, we go live.
Knightline Post-Game Live, your place to talk about football with two of the biggest UCF fans around.
Go Knights!
Charge on. Welcome to Inside the Huddle with former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, brought to you by the Little Greek Fresh Grill. Fresh, flavorful, fabulous. Waterford Lakes, 855 North Althea Trail, Orlando.
Let's look at the latest game through the eyes of former UCF quarterback Kyle Israel, who's stopping by Knightline to talk about the Tulsa game. And, Kyle, what is there to talk about in this game? It seemed like Tulsa is running the UCF offense UCF wishes it could run.
Yeah, Tulsa is a very good football team. I think we knew that going into the game. But they're one of those teams that, almost kind of lulls you to sleep a little bit. But before we got on here, I asked you guys, and I was thinking to myself, gosh, it just wasn't a spectacular game, not a whole lot of special situations. But, Tulsa's a good football team. I think they're very experienced. I think they're very well coached. And we saw a lot of probably what most UCF fans that have any type of knowledge in regards to football expected when we came into the weekend, which was a team that could score points, a team that knew how to stop the run and defend the pass, and a team that was probably the best in our league, arguably, with South Florida, who we'll face next week. But, it's a good football team, and I think it's a good test for us because that, in my opinion, shows us where the conference is as a whole when you have a team like Tulsa who doesn't have the biggest recruiting power in the world. They only have 4,000 students at their university. They're not dominant in the world of the social media world of people knowing who and what they are, but they're just a solid team, and that is hard to beat. And so I think we saw that yesterday.
We were talking a little bit about stats before we started as well when we got you on the line before we actually started recording, and Milton was 25 of 51 for 233 yards. I was shocked when I saw this stat because where did 233 yards come from? It had to have been like a lot of little short passes and stuff. There was one long one to Trylko Smith, but it just... that stat really snuck up on me. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know that he had that many yards, to be honest with you.
I was a little bit surprised when I heard the total number of yards myself. And it just seemed like we never really got into a flow of the game. It almost had, even the last home game, which was Cincinnati, kind of was a tiny bit sleepy as well. And I think that yesterday was a tiny bit sleepy. I know I saw you before the game, Andrew. I was down on the sideline, and you walked over and said hello. But there was I can't quite put my finger on exactly why it seems to be a season where people aren't engaged as much. And I got that same vibe yesterday in the stadium. It's like we had a decent crowd. We had an okay crowd. I thought it would be better for 8 o'clock against Tulsa, where George O'Leary was being recognized at halftime. I thought we'd have 40,000 people. But when that's not the case, it was kind of sleepy. So I think that all played into the factor. And then you go back to the passing statistics at 233 yards, and where did that come from? I don't know. Maybe when I was paying attention to something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just didn't – it just wasn't never got the feeling that we were competitive in the game or that it meant anything. And that was probably a little bit frustrating for myself.
Well, but still they fought back, and they got to a 14-14 tie at the half, yes. Even though – those drives stalled and resulted in those long field goals, and kudos for the 47 and the 48 to Matthew Wright. Talk about those drives. What do you see there, and why is the running game struggling yet again this past weekend?
I can't put my finger on that. I'm not sure if it's offensive line. I'm not sure if it is play calling. It's tough to say, but you do know that we have, with Dontravius Wilson and with our backfield, we have talented guys. So when you can't actually visually see what the issue may be, I tend to go back more towards the offensive line in creating space and creating holes. And in this type of offense, I think a lot of people overlook the fact of how crucial it is to get second-level blocks. So not the block on the nose tackle or the other tackle or both defensive ends, but really getting up to the linebackers. Getting up to the linebackers in this style of offense is so crucial because that is where you really gain that chunk yardage. And I think if our rushing game is going to continue to improve, and if our offense as a whole is going to continue to improve, it's going to be on second-level blocking. Can we get to the linebacker? Can we get a hand on the guy? It doesn't have to be a full-out pancake. But can you get a hand on the guy or make him take a step in the wrong direction to allow your running back to gain some little advantage, I think is where we need to see that improvement. And I think we will with time, but that right now, second-level blocking, I think is where we're struggling the most in the running game.
I think it's interesting that it seems to me like this whole offense that should be getting better at this time of the year is honestly starting to almost regress. I mean, they just could not get anything going yesterday. I mean, it took us forever to get a first down. What are your thoughts on that? Is it regressing? Has McKenzie taken a step back? I'm kind of dumbfounded by the entire thing.
Well, it's not spectacular. I think I'm seeing the same thing everybody else is, and we're just flat out struggling to put the pieces together as a unit. I honestly, really, truly believe that the inability to throw the ball down the field for big chunk plays is something that really makes it difficult to do the rest of the offense. If you have zero deep threat, imagine being a defensive coordinator, right? Standing on the sideline and looking at a team and saying, well, they're not going to throw it 40 yards down the field. So let's put everybody under 16 yards and do everything we can to stop the run. And if they beat us on a deep bomb, then that's the second or third time they've done that all season, right? If you can look at that on Madden or when they had NCAA and in college football. If you were playing on a video game, stack the box and force them to throw deep. And right now, teams are doing that, and we don't have an answer for it. And so everything becomes difficult when you can't throw a deep ball. And I'm not saying McKenzie's not capable. I'm saying that we're not completing them. And that just makes everything hard.
That was going to be my next question is why are we not, using that part of the game? But if we've seen McKenzie throw deep, he's done it before. I mean, I saw in his high school tape, he did it all the time,
Yeah.
So I don't believe that he can't do it. I just don't understand why we're not doing it, I guess, And
That's a good question. I would never put that on McKenzie. I know he has that ability. But what I really think it comes down to is we have Traquan Smith, but we legitimately don't really have another deep threat that has size, that has a hand to go up and get the football. We just don't have it at this point in time. And we've seen what a Jawan Hamilton and Adrian Killand and those guys, those are all crucial to the running game, but we didn't in this pass recruiting class add any playmakers and depth on the outside at the wide receiver position. And I think that's something that we're going to have to continue to do because we see what speed does in the running game, right? We've seen it this year. We saw it at Michigan, seen it a couple other games. But what does speed and size do at the wide receiver position? Well, it just completely opens up your entire offense. And I think that through recruiting, certainly coming up in the next 3 or 4 months, which is crucial, can really, really help our offense and certainly help McKenzie. But Traquan Smith, he's our only real deep threat option, in my opinion. And yesterday he dropped some passes. He dropped a third down conversion on a dig route that I was standing on the sideline and saw bounce right off his chest. So if you're going to keep an offense moving, you're going to convert on third down. Everybody wants to look at the quarterback, but sometimes, the quarterback still got to throw it to somebody and still got to hand it to somebody and still got to rely on somebody to block for him. So as a whole, I think our offense is struggling, as many can see, but I'm not sure that it's something that you can just fix overnight. I think through recruiting and through time, we can solve those issues. But if you're expecting to see a team go out and score 50 points against South Florida next weekend, you're going to be disappointed.
A lot of the talk after the game and a lot of the talk during the game in the stands that I could hear were people calling for Justin Holman. He's a senior, give him some time. McKenzie's struggling, obviously. I understand what Coach Frost is doing. I understand that he wants to, not get in McKenzie's head and wants to give him the confidence and wants to get him every playing situation that he can get. But there's also, next year there's going to be new freshman quarterbacks coming in. Does he stick with, I think people are kind of worried that Coach Frost is getting really stubborn, and I don't think they understand really what he's trying to do with McKenzie and why he keeps him in there as long as he does when he's struggling.
It's so easy for us to have a conversation on a regular basis about a coach being stubborn. Let me just give you a scenario. I had a really bad semester in 2005 in the classroom where I struggled with my GPA, and so did some other quarterbacks on the staff. And Coach O'Leary's approach to our quarterbacks, myself, Stephen Moffitt, and some other guys that struggled that semester in spring and early in the fall that next year, so different because he expected us to be leaders. Well, the point I'm trying to make is there are so many variables and so many things that the fan sitting in the stands does not see that happen in the college athlete's life, that there are multiple layers to why coaches make decisions. So if anybody's trying to think that Coach Frost is being stubborn in regards to going back to Justin Holman, does it make sense to play a senior quarterback on a year where you're bowl eligible, have no chance at a conference championship, and have one game left against your out? Does it make any sense to anybody out there to go to Justin Holman? Maybe if you're saying, well, what about the victory? What about the win today? Sure, I understand that. I do understand that, and I can side with that a little bit. Let's win a damn football game, of course. But in the grand scheme of things, we're also the same group of fans that are saying, I hope Frost stays. I hope he's here for 4 years. I hope he's here for 5 years. Well, if we are hoping that is the case, then give him time to build his program. And we've qualified for a bowl. We've won 6 games. We have a true freshman quarterback. And we've done all those things with a true freshman quarterback. Now, if we're not seeing what we're wanting to see on Saturdays out of our quarterback, Mackenzie Millen, who's 5 months removed from living in Hawaii and a true freshman, what is your expectation of the entire program as a whole? We have to grow in steps, and it's going to take time, and we're living that. We're having a conversation about it, the three of us. It takes time. Is McKenzie the right guy? I think he is. We'll see as we go into next season. But if we think that a true freshman quarterback that came to a staff from Hawaii who only had a few weeks to recruit is going to be the best player in our program's history, we're idiots. That's not going to happen. However, I don't think that we go backwards to Justin Holman as a senior who's on his way out when what we're asking of the head coach is to build our program for the future and please don't leave. It makes no sense to go back to a senior quarterback.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And, I'm the first guy on Twitter, really, seriously, should we make a change here? And I said that yesterday on Twitter, probably in the first quarter. I'm like, maybe it's time for somebody else to come out. I didn't mean, to come out for the entire game. We've talked about it a few times. Trace and I talked about it a lot. just give him a little bit of a chance to see it from the sideline, maybe to relax a little bit or whatever. But it just seems like we're not seeing from McKenzie what we saw in him in the beginning, and I'm not sure, what's going on there. It's just kind of confusing.
You look at Tyler Harris, you look at Pizza Novo. Are those guys better options? You look at Justin Holman. I'm not sure.
I don't believe so.
Do you remember
no.
a period of time where people couldn't stand him as our starting quarterback? We have short memories. And I'm not trying to say anything negative about Justin Holman, because I think Justin Holman, more importantly, off the field, is an incredible ambassador for our program.
Absolutely.
He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
However, who else is the best option? I don't know. I would rather go with a true freshman and see if he can work through these ups and downs than go to people that have had opportunities to prove that they can play and haven't produced.
And that's
just
the
my
other
opinion.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's
right.
What I believe. I believe that in life in general, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and especially in football. So, I understand why he's keeping him in there. It may not, win us games like last night, but, like you said, for the future, when you're trying to build something, it's a completely different thing than every single game maybe going the way that everybody wanted it to go. If that makes sense.
I actually respect Coach Frost and his staff for really sticking to their plan, because it's easy when the lights come on and there's 35,000 people sitting around you judging every decision that you make, to stay with a freshman quarterback like McKenzie and to really stay the course for the future. I respect Coach Frost for having the cojones to continue to do that.
The other thing is, it's hard for any player to play looking over his shoulder the entire time. I think that's a big deal. I think that's one of the things that Coach Frost is really trying to let McKenzie know, is he believes in him, he trusts him, and he doesn't have to be looking over his shoulder that he's going to get pulled every time he makes a mistake.
You're talking to a guy that's lived in that reality.
I know.
Sucks.
I've lived there too. It's there's nothing worse than that. Period. So
that's the worst position to be in the world.
Well, shifting gears a bit, I want to get your perspective on the ceremony and the unveiling of the George O'Leary statue, and how you thought that was handled, and the recognition that the coach deserved for what he had brought to UCF over the decade plus that he was with the program.
That's a good question. I thought it was lackluster. I thought it lacked luster. I thought that when you look at what George O'Leary did for this program, and I have to, I try to separate myself because he did so much for me. From him coming to my school after he got the job at UCF in 2004, multiple times to have lunch with me, and he literally sold me on his vision for UCF. Literally. Verbalized it, spoke it. And it happened over the last 12 or 13 years. It legitimately happened. Kyle, we're going to be a top 10 program, number one. We were a top 10 program in his tenure. We're going to have an on-campus stadium. I can't tell you when it's going to be built, but I guarantee you in 10 years you're going to come to a stadium on campus that you helped be a part of building. Kyle, we're not going to be in the MAC conference for very long. We'll move our way up to different conferences, and hopefully at some point in time we'll be a program that can play for a national championship. He literally spoke these things to me in 2004 after having the job for a week. And I know that some of it was his decision, which I understand, but for the guy that really put our program on the map, in my opinion, for the guy that actually made us relevant, for the guy that made people interested in football in Central Florida when it comes to UCF, for the guy that brought us so many great moments, from conference championships to a Fiesta Bowl victory, for him to get a halftime thank you in a lackluster ceremony for a statue, and I know the statue is a big deal. Believe me, I understand that is like a long-term legacy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody wants a statue of themselves, right? I understand that. But that's a guy that literally did all of that, and we kind of give him a thanks, GOL, for your service at halftime of a Tulsa game. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like he deserves more. I feel like if there's anybody that's ever, had issues with GOL, it's me. You know, I've had my issues with him. I've disagreed with him many times, and I've agreed with him many times. But at the end of the day, you know, some friends were giving me a hard time yesterday because they didn't want to go to the game. And I said, I don't care what you guys want to do. I'm going to the game. And I reminded them, I said, if it wasn't for George O'Leary, me, you, and you, none of us would know each other. He recruited all of us to play together. That's why we're all friends. And that's why we have a fan base that actually cares about football, because he was such a polarizing guy that he drew people in to the program. People were interested because of him. Not because of the product on the field when we lost 11 games in 2004. Nobody cared about that team. They wanted to see what George O'Leary would do with this program. And I think that he deserves more than what he received yesterday, but I do believe that a statue is the best thing that we could have ever done for him in regards to how much he meant to this program and where we're going in the future. And I need to remind you guys, in 2004, when he took over UCF football, it was bad. We had won 3 games the year before. Nobody cared about us. We had our little run with Dante Culpepper. We were kind of over that stage. We didn't know who we were as a school. We didn't know who we were as a football program. Our identity was kind of just floating out there. Nobody really knew what UCF was, in my opinion. And when you put a guy like George O'Leary with that personality in control of your program, I really don't think there's a lot of things that have happened if it's not for George O'Leary. I may be a medical school, a new school downtown, a new campus downtown, There's a lot of things that our football program, and having a guy that is just balls to the wall like GOL, a lot of that stuff rubs off on other people, and I think he's had that impact on our university, and a great impact on our university, more so than people will ever give him credit for.
Did you have the opportunity to talk with him at all during the weekend?
I gave him a huge hug, and I did talk to him. You know, for Coach O'Leary has always been the guy from day one. He said, I'll care more about what you're doing 15 years from now than what you do in the 4 years that you play for me. So we caught up. We caught up on Little Greek. We caught up on my travels in Russia. We caught up on, he was talking about uniforms and asked my opinion of the uniforms. And I said, Coach, I'm glad that we don't have to wear socks at the base of our calves anymore, because that was the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. And he obviously chuckled. But, you know, he was in a mood yesterday that I've only seen him in a few times. One time after we won the conference championship in 2007, he was in a really, really good mood. And it was awesome. There was a moment in 2006, I believe, we got a really big recruit. I don't know who it was on signing day, but he was so happy on signing day. I can't remember who it was now. But, yeah, he was great. I think that obviously him struggling with the melanoma cancer and everything else put a lot of things into perspective. But I just thought he probably deserved more than that. But I think that was perfect for him because he doesn't like that type of recognition. He just doesn't.
Well, I want to talk about rivalry week. I have a background in journalism, so I pride myself in being fair and impartial, dot the I's, cross the T's, but I also don't really like South Florida. Talk about rivalry week. Talk about your experience with that team from Tampa, both going there and them coming to Orlando. What were your experiences, your takeaways, those memories of that heated rivalry?
Well, for me, it was a struggle. I mean, we lost to South Florida every time I played them, so it's difficult. However, I will say that there was a period of time when UCF didn't have a rival. Like, we legitimately didn't have a rival. Many people would say, well, it's Troy State or Georgia Southern or some random other school we used to play in the 1AA playoffs every year. We didn't have a rival, flat out. So USF being our rival is, number one, important, and people look beyond that now. I know it's 10, 12 years later, but it's great to have a rival. Number two, for me, South Florida has always been like this place that I didn't quite understand. You know, they don't have an on-campus football facility. When Jim Levitt recruited me there and offered me a scholarship, they offered me a scholarship in his office in a portable. You know, they talk about UCF coming from a place that needed a lot of growth. South Florida, you got to give those people credit in regards to facilities and those type of things, because 13 years ago they were recruiting out of portables. But the rivalry as a whole, I think, is huge. I think that it will grow. It will be bigger 10 to 15 to 20 years down the road when guys like me are 50 and 55 and 60 years old, and we have a true disdain and bitter taste in our mouths about South Florida than it is right now. I talk to people in the community, are you going to the South Florida game? I'm not sure yet. Well, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody in the Alabama or the Auburn fan base that when they have an opportunity to go to a game, especially that game, they're doing whatever they can to make arrangements. So I still think we've got to mature some as a fan base, and I think South Florida fans, clearly, if you look at their attendance, which is horrible, have to mature some in regards to the rivalry. It's laughable how bad their fan base is. It's laughable. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. For them to have 10,000 people at a big game when your teams were like, give South Florida credit. They're a good football team. We're playing a good football team next week, but their fan base sucks. Like, who are their fans? I don't even know. Anyways.
Well, let's think about the bookends of Bright House Network Stadium under that name, as that name will change, opens up with that exciting narrow loss to Texas and closes out with this Tulsa game. And I asked the rivalry question because we have this freshman quarterback, and you were once that young quarterback, and there's a lot of outside pressure that doesn't have anything to do with the defensive back. It has to do with message boards and fans and death threats and all sorts of things that really can get into the head of a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid. And in the case of Mackenzie Milton, as we've talked about him and his growth and his progression, 5,000 miles away from family and friends. And that's a lot to deal with. You had to deal with that. It takes a lot of inner strength to get through moments like that.
It does, Trace. And it takes somebody that understands that to point it out like you just did. It is very, very difficult. But I think the thing that really helps is that, I think Mackenzie's very good at compartmentalization. And I think coaching staffs and coaches are very good at compartmentalizing things. And I think when I look back at my life and my experience, when it comes to something like a South Florida game or, for me, East Carolina, because I hate East Carolina, being able to compartmentalize all different aspects of your life into their particular places is crucial. And that's not something that Mackenzie's going to just do right away. But I think as he understands, and if I ever had an opportunity to talk with Mackenzie, it would be more, hey, listen, this is a huge part of your life. I understand your classes and your schedule and watching film, but, hey, put it right here and then close it off and then move on to the next thing, which is, okay, we got to play South Florida this week. And really compartmentalize your days and compartmentalize your mind in regards to what the upcoming task is. And it can be very difficult. It's very hard to learn. But I think Mackenzie is a guy, and I don't know him, and I hope that I get to know him more as time goes on, and who he is outside of just a football player that I see running around the field on Saturdays. It's a very tough position to be in, but I think that it can be managed basically through compartmentalization, and I think that's the only way to do it is separate kind of your focus throughout the course of a day. I'm going to focus on class, then I'm going to focus on film, and then I'm going to focus on doing my quarterback test that I have to turn into the coach at 2 p.m. on Thursday. And then I'm just going to focus on icing my shoulder and getting some rehab. I mean, you literally have to break it down like that or you'll just get swamped.
All right. Well, we said before we started this that we would keep it kind of short, and we absolutely have not.
I think that was the longest one we've ever done.
It wasn't, but we definitely went over the time that we said that we were going to. But all this stuff is important, and it just the insight that you give us is extremely important, and I greatly appreciate it. I want to ask you as we end this, like we always do, what's going on at the Little Greek this week?
Come eat some gyros. Nothing special this week. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving week. We just hope that everybody has a great week with their families and can really enjoy the holiday. And if there's any catering needs that anybody needs at the last minute, chicken, steak, lamb, rice, salads, we can do that in less than 12 hours. So if there's a last-minute catering opportunity, give us a call, 745-5501. But other than that, we just hope everybody has a great holiday.
Awesome. All right, Kyle, thank you so much for your time that you spent with us this evening. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Hello, Knight Nation. This is Tim Baker with East Coast Paddle, owner, operator, and fellow UCF alum. East Coast Paddle is located in Orlando's favorite beach town of New Smyrna Beach. East Coast Paddle is rated by TripAdvisor as the #1 rated water tour activity in New Smyrna. We are most known for our boat-assisted paddleboard eco tours. This is a 2-hour dock-to-dock experience like none other on the island. You'll paddle with manatees, dolphins, and have a chance to see many of the 4,000 species that inhabit our lagoon system. So take professional pictures throughout the tour that are sent directly to your email at no additional charge. This is not all we have to offer. Traditional paddleboard rentals delivered to your location, paddle fit classes, and several fishing options. Please reach out to us at 386-402-8585 or visit us at our website, eastcoastpaddle.com, or follow us on Facebook at East Coast Paddle or Instagram at EastCPSUP.
Now, back to Knightline with Andrew and Trace.
All right, you just heard it from Tim. East Coast Paddle out of New Smyrna Beach is giving away a boat-assisted paddleboard eco tour for 2. It's a $110 value as it's part of its support to Knightline. All you have to do is go to our website, click on the link that says contest entry, put your email in there, and you are entered to win the thing from East Coast Paddle. It's really cool out there. It's beautiful. It's awesome. So please go sign up for that at www.ucfnightlinepodcast.com.
Good luck, everyone. Don't forget, we'll be dropping midweek questions with our insider from South Florida to further preview the rivalry game with the Bulls, and that we're going to go live again. You're going to be live with a post-game show.
You know what? I got to add something. We will announce the winner of that contest on our end of the season spectacular, whatever that is going to be.
Got to find spectacular music. We need music, dancers. I would love to further mess up South Florida's season because it really is kind of messed up because they lost to Temple. But look around the American. How about Houston? Boy, they have beaten 2 top 5 teams. They knocked off Louisville the other night, 36-10. Memphis crushed Cincinnati. Cincinnati finally scored a touchdown, by the way. This is interesting. UConn lost 30-0 at Boston College. Temple beat Tulane 31-0. Why is it interesting? Those two teams, UConn and Tulane, play each other this week. Boy, that's a snore fest right there.
You know, it's interesting because Louisville does not do very good with their AAC opponents when they're ranked. Have you noticed that?
True.
We beat them when they were number whatever, and then Houston just beat them when they're...
That's a good point there.
Not good.
Navy beat East Carolina 66-31, and the Cows, they outscored SMU 35-27. Interesting, Cows and Temple tied atop the East. So unless Temple loses, and Temple has... East Carolina goes to Temple, and East Carolina's horrible. It looks like Temple's going to win out in the East, and it looks like Navy is going to win out in the West. Navy is at SMU. That's not necessarily an easy game. Houston's 5-2, Tulsa's 5-2, so you never know how that's going to shake out. It comes down to the right there at the end of the season. Looking ahead at your Knightline planner, women's basketball, we're going to talk about them in just a moment. They will hit the road, taking on Butler November 22 before returning home Saturday, November 26, 2:30 game against Ryder at CFE Arena. Sunday, November 27th, again, Austin P, 2:30 p.m. as well. Volleyball on the road, final 2 matches at Tulane, November 23, season finale at Houston, November 25. And for all the folks that are going to Tampa for the football game, that noon start, you have time to drive back for men's basketball, November 26th game against Seattle, 7:30 at CFE Arena. Going to be a long day. I do plan to come back for that basketball game.
And while y'all are driving back, you can listen to me on Knightline Postgame Live on Rabble.tv. There's an app in the App Store of your chosen cell phone manufacturer. And our phone number for that, 407-401-9184. You can call in and talk to us about the UCF-USF game and however that goes. And we'll talk about whatever.
You may holler at you while I'm driving back.
Absolutely. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports. Tough loss for women's basketball. Saturday's 67-64 loss to Virginia Tech. Still, the Knights went 3-1 in the first week of the season.
Senior day win for volleyball, beating UConn 3-1 Sunday. So long to Jayla Hervey, Taylor Gallard, and Hallie Scott. UCF's win followed a tough 3-2 loss to Temple on Friday. UCF now 12-6 in the American, 22-9 overall. And congrats to sophomore Jordan Pingle, named the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Week.
The search is on for a new men's soccer head coach following athletic director Danny White's dismissal of longtime head coach Brian Cunningham. He went 71, 82, and 28 with 2 NCAA tournament berths and produced several MLS standouts, including Orlando City's Haji Berry.
Believe that'll be the 7th head coaching hire for one Danny White in just about a year.
It's a lot.
Congrats to cross country's Anne-Marie Blaney. She finished 45th out of 250 runners at the NCAA Championships, the best showing ever in UCF program history.
For the 3rd consecutive year, UCF student-athletes graduated at a higher rate than any FBS public institution in the nation. UCF tied private institutions Vanderbilt and Tulane and only trailed private institutions Notre Dame, Stanford, Northwestern, Duke, and Boston College.
Pretty good company right there.
Wow.
Huh?
Those are, very well-known academic schools. So.
That we are a part of.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us. This has been episode 89 of the Knightline podcast. I'm Andrew Phegley.
Beat the cows. I'm Trey Trylko. Go Knights!
Charge on.
UCF, charge on to the field. With our spirits, we'll never yield. Black and gold charge right through the line. Victory is our cry. BSUTO or Y. Tonight our nights will